My name is Ariba, and I'm 27 years old. Yesterday, my husband's brother slapped me so hard my lips split open, all because I refused to serve him like a servant in my own home. My husband, instead of defending me, looked away. That silence hurt more than the bruise. I spent the night staring at the mirror, feeling the sting of betrayal and the heat of something darker, revenge. By dawn, I wasn't the same woman. I had found something in my late father's drawer, a document that could change who truly owns this house. So I made breakfast, the kind that ends a man's arrogance forever. Before I continue, tell me your country and the time right now. I still remember the sound, sharp, wet, humiliating. His hand cracked across my face before I even realized he'd moved. My husband's brother, Sajid, glared at me like I was something beneath his shoes. My cheek burned, my lip bled, and all I could hear was the metallic ring of silence that followed. My husband, Hassan, stood by the door, pretending to scroll through his phone. He didn't say a word. Not one word. I wanted to scream, to tear down every picture frame in that cursed house, but instead, I swallowed it. I wiped the blood off my mouth and turned away, my pride bleeding with it. My heart pounded against my ribs like a caged animal, begging for escape. But I knew if I cried, they'd call me dramatic. If I shouted, they'd call me mad. So I smiled, broken but alive, and said, "Dinner's ready." At night, the bruise darkened under my skin, spreading like a stain. I pressed ice against it, staring at the mirror, whispering to myself, "You won't break me." But the reflection didn't look like me anymore. It looked like someone planning something dangerous, something final. Downstairs, I heard them laughing, Sajid and Hassan. My name slipped between their laughter like a dagger. I crept closer to the staircase, heart hammering, every word slicing through the air. "She thinks she's smart," Sajid snorted. "Wait till we sell that property her father left. Then we'll see how high she holds her head." My stomach turned cold. I gripped the railing so hard my knuckles whitened. Property? My father's property? My father had died leaving nothing, or so I was told. Why would they mention it like it was theirs to sell? I took a slow step back, careful not to creak the stair. Every nerve in my body screamed to storm in, to demand answers, but I stayed still, invisible in the shadows. Because if there was one thing I knew about men like them, it was this: they only underestimated silence. That night, I made a promise to my reflection. Tomorrow, I'll find the truth. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Sajid's voice, "We'll sell her father's property." The words crawled under my skin. Morning light spilled through the curtains, harsh and golden, like it was mocking me. Hassan had already left for work. The house was quiet, too quiet, except for the echo of betrayal that still lingered in my ears. I walked into my father's old study. The room smelled of dust and memory. After he died, Hassan had locked most of his things away, saying, "You'll only torture yourself if you keep looking back." I realized now he was never protecting me, he was protecting what was inside. My hands trembled as I pulled open the drawers. Old letters. Yellowed photographs. The wooden panels creaked like they were trying to warn me. And then, at the very bottom, I found it, a sealed brown envelope with my father's handwriting. My breath hitched. It was addressed to me. Inside was a property deed, with my name written in neat, bold letters, Ariba Fatima. My knees almost gave way. My father had left me everything: the land, the house, the business. All of it. Not Hassan. Not Sajid. Me. Tears burned my eyes, but they weren't from sadness. They were from a rage so fierce I could taste it. All this time, they'd called me dependent, worthless, lucky to be here. But this paper said otherwise. This paper was power. I clutched it to my chest like a weapon. I wanted to scream, to run downstairs and throw it in their faces, but something inside me whispered, "Not yet." The front door creaked open. Heavy footsteps. Hassan's voice called out softly, "Ariba? What are you doing in there?" I shoved the file back into the drawer and locked it just as he appeared in the doorway, his smile tight and suspicious. His eyes darted to the drawer behind me, then back to my face. "I was just cleaning," I lied. He nodded, but his gaze didn't move. That drawer suddenly felt like it was glowing between us. That night, when I came downstairs for water, I froze. Hassan was standing in the dark, trying to break open the same drawer. I didn't sleep at all. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the faint blue bruise under my eye, the one Hassan didn't bother to ask about. Downstairs, I'd seen him with a screwdriver in his hand, forcing that drawer open. By dawn, I had made my choice. If they wanted a war, I'd feed it to them on a silver plate. I went to the kitchen before anyone woke up. The air smelled of gas and steel. I cracked eggs, stirred milk, made parathas, the same routine I had done for years. But today, my hands weren't trembling. They were steady, deliberate, almost ceremonial. As I cooked, I slipped a small folded note under one of the plates. Just a few words that would taste sharper than any spice. When the brothers came down, I greeted them with calmness that unnerved even me. Sajid smirked, gesturing at my face. "Still looks swollen," he said with a laugh. Hassan chuckled. "Next time, learn some respect." I smiled. Breakfast first. They ate. I watched every bite. The house felt too quiet, too still, as if the walls were waiting to hear what came next. Then Sajid's fork paused midair. His eyes dropped to the folded note under his plate. Slowly, he opened it. His lips moved silently as he read, "You just ate your last lie." The color drained from his face. Hassan snatched the note from him, his hands shaking. "What is this, Ariba?" he demanded. I leaned forward, my voice soft, deadly calm. "A reminder," I said, "that you can't sell what was never yours." Their eyes widened. For the first time, I saw fear flicker across their faces, the kind that comes when a woman stops crying and starts thinking. Sajid pushed his chair back violently, his bravado cracking. "What did you do?" he hissed. I smiled again, sweetly this time. "You'll find out soon enough." The sound of a doorbell echoed through the tense silence. Hassan glanced toward it, confused. I didn't move. "Who is that?" he asked. I looked him dead in the eye. "Someone who knows what you did." The doorbell kept ringing, sharp and insistent, like justice itself was knocking. Hassan went pale as he opened the door. Standing there was a courier boy holding a large brown envelope. "For Mrs. Ariba Hassan," he said. My name. Not his. Not theirs. Mine. Hassan tried to grab it, but I snatched it first. My fingers tingled with something close to victory. I tore it open in front of them. Inside was a letter and a photocopy of my father's will. The same one I'd seen in that drawer, but now officially stamped and dated. Sajid's fork clattered to the floor. Hassan's jaw tightened. His voice cracked through the air. "Where did you get that?" "I didn't," I said. "It found me." The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. My heart pounded so loud I could almost hear it echo against the kitchen walls. This was the moment I had waited for since the bruise first formed. "You lied to me," I said. My voice trembled, but didn't break. "You lied about my father, his property, everything. You made me believe he left me nothing." Sajid slammed his hand on the table. "Don't twist it, woman. That land was worthless. We were just trying to protect you." "Protect me?" I laughed, a sound that didn't feel like mine. "By beating me? By stealing what's mine?" Hassan stood up then, slow and deliberate, his face dark with anger. "Enough," he said. "You will not humiliate us like this. If you want to stay in this house, you'll apologize for everything. And if you think that paper will save you," he reached out, snatched the document from my hands, and held it near the gas flame of the stove. "Then watch it burn." I lunged forward, grabbing his wrist, our eyes locking in a silent war. The smell of paper and smoke filled the air. Sajid laughed nervously, thinking he'd won. But the fire didn't reach the will. I pulled it free, pressing it against my chest. "Burn me if you have to," I whispered, "but this will never turn to ash." Hassan stared at me for a long moment, his rage twisting into something colder, fear. That's when my phone buzzed on the counter. A new message. Unknown number. "If you want to end this, come alone tonight. I have proof of the forgery." I looked up slowly. Sajid was still watching me, smiling faintly, as if he already knew who had sent it. The message burned in my mind all day. I have proof of the forgery. Each word felt like a lifeline and a threat. I didn't know whether to trust it, but I knew one thing. If there was even a chance it was true, I had to go. That evening, the house was heavy with unspoken rage. Sajid wouldn't meet my eyes. Hassan avoided me altogether, pretending to be busy with calls that didn't exist. I moved through the rooms quietly, memorizing every shadow, every possible escape. I slipped the phone and a hidden copy of the will into my purse. By nightfall, I could barely hear my own heartbeat over the storm outside. The rain was merciless, slamming against the windows as if trying to warn me not to step out. But I did. I always did. Halfway down the street, headlights flashed behind me. My pulse spiked. A car slowed beside me, Hassan's. He rolled down the window, water running down his face like melted anger. "Where are you going?" His voice was calm, too calm. "Out," I said flatly. He looked at me for a long moment, then smiled. "You know, Sajid and I talked today. About you. About how you've changed." "I had to," I replied. "You left me no choice." He leaned closer, voice low enough for only me to hear. "If you keep this up, you won't survive in this house. You'll destroy yourself before you destroy us." I turned away and kept walking. His car followed for a few meters, then sped off into the night. My hands were shaking as I reached the old cafe mentioned in the text. Inside, the smell of coffee and damp wood clung to the air. I scanned every face until one man looked up from a corner table, a man in his late 50s with kind, tired eyes. "You don't know me," he said softly, "but I worked for your father. I handled his estate. What they did to you, it's unforgivable." He slid an envelope across the table. "In here is everything you need to expose the forgery." Relief washed through me, sharp and fleeting. "Thank you," I whispered. He nodded gravely. "But be careful. They won't stop now." I froze. "They?" He looked past me toward the door. His face drained of color. "They already know you're here." I turned slowly toward the cafe entrance. The glass door swung open, and a gust of rain swept in. For a heartbeat, the doorway was just shadows and thunder. Then I saw him. Sajid. His soaked shirt clung to his chest, his eyes blazing with that same cruel satisfaction I'd seen the night he hit me. He spotted the lawyer instantly. "So this is where the traders meet?" His voice cut through the room, silencing the few customers inside. The lawyer's hand trembled against his cup, but his gaze stayed steady. "You've done enough damage, Sajid," he said. "It's over." Sajid smirked. "Over? You think a piece of paper will save her?" He turned to me. "You're a fool, Ariba. My brother might forgive you, but I won't." Before I could answer, he lunged forward, snatching the envelope from the table. I grabbed it back, the paper tearing between us. The lawyer stood, shouting for him to stop, but Sajid's fist slammed into his jaw, sending him crashing into a chair. "Run," the lawyer hissed at me. I bolted out into the rain, the torn envelope pressed against my chest. My shoes slipped on the wet pavement as I ran toward the main road, headlights streaking by like flashes of panic. My breath came out ragged, my pulse screaming in my ears. I finally ducked into an alley, pressing myself against the cold wall, trying to catch my breath. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Half the pages were missing, drenched, ink bleeding. But I could still make out one line clearly. "All assets, properties, and trusts belong solely to Ariba Fatima." It was enough. Enough to prove everything. I waited until I was sure he hadn't followed me, then called the lawyer. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. My stomach twisted. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound outside my window felt like a threat. By morning, I drove to the lawyer's office, my heart sinking at the sight of shattered glass scattered across the floor. Police tape fluttered in the cold wind. I asked the officer what happened. He sighed. "Break-in last night. Whoever did it took every legal file in the room." My hands went numb. The documents were gone. But on the wall, scrawled in black ink, were 3 chilling words. "You were warned." The next morning, I sat in a cold metal chair at the police station, my hands clasped so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The officer barely looked at me as I described what happened, the bruise, the slap, the threats, the break-in. He only nodded and scribbled something on a pad, eyes flicking to my face and back again. "Do you have witnesses?" he asked. "No," I whispered. Then it's your word against theirs. That sentence landed harder than Sajid's hand ever had. My lips trembled, but I didn't cry. I just sat there, realizing how far their reach went. Wealth, connections, reputation, they had built armor around themselves, and I had nothing but truth. By afternoon, I received a call from the lawyer's office. Not him, a new assistant. Her voice was shaky. "Ma'am, the documents you gave us, they're gone. Everything related to your case was stolen." My world tilted. What about him? Is he okay? A pause. He's in the hospital. Someone attacked him. I dropped the phone. My hands felt numb. This wasn't just betrayal anymore, it was war. When I reached the hospital, the lawyer's face was wrapped in bandages, his voice faint. "They're trying to erase the paper trail," he murmured. "But I made digital copies. Hidden. Find them before they do." That night, when I got home, Hassan was waiting. His calmness was terrifying. He gestured toward the living room where Sajid sat, grinning like a devil who'd won. "I hope you enjoyed your little performance," Hassan said. "Because it's over now." He slid a thick envelope across the table. Inside were court papers. "You're being sued," he said, "for defamation and attempted fraud. You'll answer for every lie you've told." I stared at the paper, feeling the walls closing in. Sajid leaned back in his chair, smirking. "You should have just cooked breakfast, sweetheart." I felt the tears build, but I refused to let them fall. I looked up and met Hassan's eyes. "You're right," I said softly. "It's over." He smiled in satisfaction. Then I added, "for you." That night, I sat alone, staring at the faint blue glow of my laptop, typing a name into the search bar, the man my father had once called his most trusted friend. If I was walking into hell, I was going to drag them there with me. The courthouse smelled of fear and paper, an odd mix of perfume, sweat, and desperation. I sat behind the plaintiff's desk, palms pressed together, the bruise on my cheek now a faint shadow of what started it all. Across from me sat Hassan, stone-faced in his crisp suit, and beside him, Sajid, looking smug, like he already owned the verdict. Their lawyer stood tall, arrogant. "Your Honor, my clients are victims of slander. This woman," he pointed at me as if I were filth, "has fabricated documents and defamed her own family." The judge's eyes flicked toward me. "Do you have proof to the contrary, Mrs. Ariba?" My throat tightened. The stolen files, the missing papers, the silenced witnesses, everything had been erased. All I had left was the truth. And scars. Before I could speak, the doors creaked open. A voice broke through the heavy silence. "I do." Every head turned. The courtroom buzzed. Standing in the aisle was Farzana, our household maid, clutching a small phone in her shaking hands. I gasped. The judge motioned her forward. "State your name." "Farzana Bibi," she said, her voice trembling. "I work for Mrs. Ariba. I saw what they did to her. I recorded it." Sajid's face drained of color. "Lies," he shouted. The judge raised a hand. "Play it." Farzana pressed play. The sound filled the room, Sajid's laughter, my cry, the slap. The echo of my humiliation became my weapon. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Hassan's composure cracked. His knuckles went white. I felt the air shift, the balance tipping. For the first time, they looked afraid. "Do you deny this, Mr. Sajid?" the judge asked sharply. Sajid's jaw clenched. She provoked me. That was the moment he snapped. He jumped to his feet, pointing at me, shouting over the murmurs. "She thinks she's clever. But she doesn't even know the real secret." The judge banged his gavel. "Order." But Sajid wasn't done. His voice thundered through the chamber. "The property she's fighting for, it's not even ours. It's under her father's trust, and it renews this year in her name." A silence heavier than any sound fell across the room. I stared at him, every muscle frozen. What had he just said? The entire courtroom froze. Even the ceiling fans seemed to stop turning. I felt the blood rush to my ears, drowning out the echo of Sajid's words. "The property isn't even ours, it's under her father's trust, and it renews this year in her name." The judge leaned forward sharply. "What did you just say, Mr. Sajid?" Sajid's mouth moved, but Hassan grabbed his arm, hissing under his breath. "Shut up." It was too late. The damage was done. My lawyer turned to the judge. Your Honor, that statement changes everything. We request an adjournment to verify this claim through the registrar's office. The judge nodded slowly. Mrs. Ariba, if what was just revealed is true, then this entire case shifts in your favor. Bring proof of the trust's renewal within 24 hours. 24 hours. That was all I had to end years of abuse, lies, and silence. The gavel struck, echoing through the chamber like a gunshot. Court adjourned. As people filed out, I stood frozen. Hassan stormed toward Sajid, his whisper harsh and venomous. You idiot. You've ruined everything. Sajid shrugged, a twisted grin on his face. Maybe she deserves it. Maybe it's time she knows. Their fight spilled into the corridor, drawing stares. I walked past them silently, the will clutched against my chest. My mind raced. If the trust really renews under my name, then I don't just own my father's property. I own theirs too. Outside, the air felt thick, electric. A storm was brewing, clouds low and heavy over the city. I could smell rain, metal, and destiny. My lawyer joined me on the courthouse steps. Ariba, this could turn everything. But we need the original trust document, or at least an official copy. Without it, the judge's words mean nothing. I nodded, numb but determined. I'll find it, I said. Whatever it takes. As I turned toward the car, I caught a glimpse of Sajid watching me from the steps, eyes dark, lips curved into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He mouthed 2 words before walking away. Good luck. But it didn't sound like a wish, it sounded like a threat. 24 hours to find the truth. Or lose everything. The clock became my enemy that day. Every second that ticked felt like a nail being driven into the coffin of my freedom. 24 hours, that's all the judge had given me to prove what my father left behind was rightfully mine. By dawn, I was in my father's old farmhouse, the one we had abandoned after his death. The place smelled of damp wood and lost years. Dust hung in the air like ghosts watching me move. The wooden floor creaked beneath every step as if whispering, "You're too late." I opened old cabinets, trunks, drawers, every inch of that forgotten house. Papers lay scattered across the floor, faded receipts, photos of happier times, but nothing legal. I tore through them like a desperate animal, ignoring the sting of splinters digging into my fingers. At one point, I found a cracked picture frame of my father. His eyes, kind yet stern, seemed to stare right through me. You left me clues, didn't you? I murmured. You always did. In the corner of the study, behind a crooked bookshelf, I noticed a faint outline, an uneven patch on the wall. My heart raced. I pressed against it, and a loose panel gave way. Inside was a small iron box. My hands trembled as I pulled it out and forced it open. There it was. The original trust deed, sealed, stamped, and dated. My father's signature glistened faintly under a thin layer of dust. Relief crashed through me so hard I almost sobbed. I grabbed the document and sank to the floor, clutching it to my chest. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't dared to hope. But that feeling lasted only seconds. Outside, gravel crunched under tires. A car door slammed shut. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, approached the house. I froze. Through the thin crack of the window, I saw the reflection of a familiar silhouette, broad shoulders, black coat, and a posture I knew too well. Hassan. My pulse thundered. Had he followed me? How did he even know I was here? The front door creaked. I stuffed the deed into my bag, heart pounding against it like a second heartbeat. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Hassan. I called out, voice shaking. Silence. Then a whisper from the doorway, low and cold. You shouldn't have come here alone. The whisper slithered through the air like smoke. I froze, gripping the iron box like a weapon. Hassan stepped into the room, his face half-lit by the dim gray light filtering through broken windows. Rainwater glistened on his coat. His smile was wrong, too calm for a man who had chased his wife into the ruins of her past. I told you to stay away from this, he said softly, his eyes on the bag clutched against my chest. Stay away from what's mine? I shot back. He sighed, taking a slow step closer. You think you understand what you're holding, Ariba? That paper will ruin everything. Our business. Our family. Sajid and I. Your lies, I cut him off. You mean it'll ruin your lies? The storm outside cracked open, thunder shaking the glass. His voice hardened. You've already embarrassed us in court. Don't make this uglier. I backed away. You should have thought of that before hitting me. Something in his eyes flickered, shame, maybe, but it disappeared just as quickly. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a lighter. My blood ran cold. Hassan, I whispered, what are you doing? He flicked it once, the flame hissing to life. Cleaning up the mess my wife made. Before I could react, he tossed the lighter toward the floor. The old rug caught instantly, flames crawling hungrily across it. The room filled with thick smoke, choking and bitter. I screamed, shoving past him toward the door. He grabbed my arm, snarling, you don't deserve any of this, Ariba. I twisted free, coughing, eyes burning. I grabbed the bag and ran for the window, smashing it open with the iron box. The fire roared behind me, devouring my father's memories. I stumbled into the rain-soaked yard, gasping for air, clutching the nearly burnt briefcase to my chest. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Some of the pages were scorched, edges curling, but the seal and signatures were still intact. I looked up at the farmhouse. Flames clawed at the roof, reflected in the puddles at my feet. And then I saw it, Hassan's car still parked by the gate, headlights faint through the rain. He hadn't come here alone. Through the smoke, another figure moved behind the flames, taller, broader. Sajid. He was holding something metal. He pointed it at me. And in that instant, lightning split the sky, followed by the deafening sound of a gunshot. The gunshot ripped through the storm. I dropped to the ground, mud splashing across my face, my heart hammering so violently it drowned out the thunder. For a second, I couldn't tell if I'd been hit, but the pain never came. The bullet had missed, shattering a lantern behind me. Through the smoke, Sajid's voice bellowed, "Give me the papers, Ariba." I clutched the burned briefcase tighter, crawling through the wet grass. The farmhouse behind me blazed like a funeral pyre, flames licking the night sky. My father's legacy burned, but I still had enough to destroy them. I wasn't going to die before I used it. Hassan shouted, his tone frantic, "Sajid, stop." The police. But Sajid ignored him. He fired again. The bullet tore through the wooden fence inches from my shoulder. I stumbled to my feet and ran, my lungs burning, vision blurred by rain and tears. The gravel road ahead gleamed like liquid glass under lightning. I could hear them behind me, the crunch of boots, the low curses, the rage of men who knew they were losing everything. My car came into view, parked by the roadside like a promise. I fumbled with the keys, hands shaking. Another shot rang out. The rearview mirror shattered. I dove into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and hit the accelerator. Tires screeched, mud flying. The headlights cut through the darkness as the road curved toward home. My pulse thudded in rhythm with the windshield wipers. When I finally reached the mansion, I stumbled out soaked, shaking, clutching the half-burned trust papers like scripture. The front door swung open. Hassan stood there, drenched and pale, eyes wide with disbelief. You survived, he muttered, as if the thought offended him. I did, I said, stepping closer, the weight of my father's name in my hands. And tomorrow, I'll make sure your lies don't. He moved toward me, desperate now, voice trembling. Ariba, please listen. We can fix this. We can start over. I stared at him, the rain blurring his face into something unrecognizable. You can't fix what you burned. I walked past him, straight into the house. Behind me, I heard the faint buzz of his phone. I turned. His fingers hovered over the screen. Plan B tonight, the message read. The last ember of mercy inside me went cold. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw fire, my father's house devoured by it, the flicker of gunfire, Hassan's trembling smile. The words Plan B tonight replayed in my mind until they lost meaning and became rhythm, doom set to a heartbeat. By morning, the world felt too calm. The mansion smelled of coffee and deception. Hassan sat at the breakfast table, scrolling through his phone like nothing had happened. Sajid was nowhere in sight. The silence was almost soothing until I realized that calm always comes before collapse. I texted my lawyer, telling him I had the surviving documents and would bring them to court. He replied instantly, "Be careful. Don't go anywhere alone." But I already felt it, eyes watching me. The maid had gone home early, the guards replaced by faces I didn't recognize. When I asked Hassan where he hired them, he only smiled. "Old friends," he said. By noon, the air had grown heavy. My instincts screamed. I grabbed my phone and car keys, heading for the gate. But before I could reach the door, something sharp pricked my arm. I spun around. One of the new guards stood behind me, syringe in hand. My vision blurred instantly. My limbs went weak. I heard Hassan's voice low, trembling but determined. "Take her to the warehouse. Don't hurt her unless she tries to run." Darkness swallowed me. When I woke up, my wrists were bound, the air thick with the stench of oil and rust. I was inside a storage facility, metal walls, leaking pipes, one small window high above me. My head pounded. My bag was gone. Footsteps echoed. Hassan appeared from the shadows, his expression cold and hollow. "You forced my hand," he said quietly. "I never wanted this." "Then let me go," I rasped. He shook his head. "You don't understand. Sajid's gone mad. He wants the papers at any cost. If I let you go now, he'll kill us both." "So this is your solution?" I hissed. "Lock me up until the judge rules in your favor?" He looked away. "I just need time." But time was exactly what he didn't have. Because outside, a car screeched to a halt. Sirens wailed. The door burst open, police flooded in. Hassan's face went white. Blue lights flashed against the warehouse walls, slicing through the dark like judgment. Hassan froze mid-step, his hands trembling. Who told them?" he stammered. I didn't answer. The officers poured in, guns raised, voices commanding. "Hands where we can see them." Hassan obeyed instantly, his bravado dissolving into panic. As they cuffed him, one officer turned to me. "Mrs. Ariba, are you all right?" I nodded weakly, still dizzy from whatever they'd injected me with. My wrists burned from the rope. "Where's Sajid?" I croaked. The officer's expression darkened. "We found him trying to flee the city. He's in custody." It was over, or so I thought. Outside, rain hammered the asphalt as they led Hassan away. He glanced back at me once, eyes pleading. For the briefest moment, I saw the man I once loved, the one who held my hand under the stars, before greed twisted him into a stranger. But pity couldn't resurrect trust. Not anymore. At the station, chaos unfolded. Reporters swarmed the entrance. Words like fraud, assault, and forgery echoed through the corridors. I sat in a corner, clutching a cup of water, watching the empire they built on deceit crumble in real time. Then I saw him, my father's lawyer, alive but limping, his face stitched and pale. He smiled weakly as he approached, a flash drive glinting in his hand. "I told you I made copies," he said softly. "This is every document from your father's trust, time-stamped and verified by the registrar's office. You're ready for court?" My throat tightened. "You saved me." He shook his head. "No. You saved yourself when you refused to stay quiet." The next morning, the courthouse was packed, press, lawyers, whispers. Hassan and Sajid stood side by side in chains, their faces pale under the harsh lights. I took the stand, voice steady as I told my story, the bruise, the betrayal, the lies. When the judge asked if I had any final statement, I said, "Silence only protects the guilty." And I'm done being silent. The room erupted as the lawyer presented the flash drive. The judge's expression hardened as he read the verified documents. He slammed the gavel once. "This court recognizes Mrs. Ariba Fatima as the sole heir to her father's estate. The accused will be charged with assault, forgery, and attempted coercion." Hassan's knees buckled. Sajid cursed under his breath. I just closed my eyes, letting the sound of justice echo. The gavel struck one last time, sealing their fate. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared as the judge's words hung in the courtroom air like the toll of a final bell. Hassan and Sajid were led away, their wrists chained, their eyes hollow. The same men who once laughed over breakfast at my pain now looked like ghosts of themselves. The reporters swarmed, flashes exploding like fireworks of truth. Someone shouted, "Mrs. Ariba, how does it feel to win?" Win. The word felt strange on my tongue. There were no winners here, only survivors. I stepped outside, the morning sun breaking through gray clouds. For the first time in years, the warmth didn't feel like an illusion. The lawyer joined me, smiling faintly. "It's over," he said. I nodded, though my chest still ached with everything that had burned: my home, my trust, the pieces of love that could never be rebuilt. A few feet away, Hassan's mother stood with trembling hands, tears streaking down her face. I walked toward her. She flinched at first, as if expecting hatred. But instead, I simply said, "I never wanted to destroy your family. They did that themselves." She looked at me for a long time, then whispered, "You were the only honest one among us." That night, I stood alone on the balcony of my reclaimed home, the one my father built, the one they tried to take. The city lights glittered like distant promises. I touched the healed scar near my lip, remembering the woman who once cried in silence. She was gone. The woman standing there now had her father's will, her name restored, and her voice sharpened by every injustice that tried to break it. I walked inside, poured tea, and opened the last envelope the lawyer had handed me after the hearing, something the court had found among my father's sealed possessions. My hands trembled as I unfolded the note. "My daughter, power is never in money. It's in truth. And truth will always find its way back to you." Tears finally came, not of pain, but release. A knock echoed from the doorway. A courier stood there, handing me another envelope. "From the registrar's office," he said. Inside was a letter confirming my ownership of all remaining family assets, and one more line written in bold. "Additional trust under review, beneficiary undisclosed." I frowned. Was there more my father left behind? Or someone else? The envelope felt heavier than paper should. I sat at my father's desk, the same one where I'd found the first deed, and stared at the seal. The wax glimmered red under the lamplight, like blood preserved by memory. For a moment, I hesitated. Part of me wanted to walk away, to close this chapter and never look back. But curiosity has its own gravity, and mine pulled me in. I broke the seal. Inside was a handwritten letter, aged but neat, every word carved with purpose. "If you are reading this, Ariba, it means the truth has reached you. But know this, wealth without peace is a curse. The trust you hold isn't just property, it's legacy. And legacy must be protected, not avenged. What I left behind isn't only for you, but for what you choose to become." My breath trembled as I turned the page. Beneath the letter was a second document, another trust, one I had never heard of. It wasn't in my name. It was left to a single line of description, "For the child who carries her name." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My hand flew to my stomach instinctively, remembering the pregnancy test I'd taken 3 months before Hassan's betrayal, one that had shown faintly positive before stress and violence took it away. My eyes blurred with tears I thought had long dried. My father had known. Somehow he had known. He hadn't left me money. He'd left me faith. I sat there for hours, letting silence fill the cracks where pain used to live. The house, once suffocating, now felt alive, like every wall was exhaling after years of holding its breath. When the clock struck midnight, I stepped out onto the balcony. The city lights glittered beneath the rain-soaked air. The same sky that once watched me break now witnessed my rise. Justice had been served, but this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming everything they tried to erase: my dignity, my worth, my voice. I'd thought I was fighting for property, but now I understood I was fighting to be seen, to be believed, to be free. Below, the gates opened quietly. Reporters waited at the end of the driveway, flashes ready. They wanted the woman from the headlines, the survivor of betrayal. But I wasn't her anymore. I wasn't anyone's victim. As I looked out over the city, I whispered into the night, "You were right, Baba. Truth always finds its way back." The wind carried my words away, soft and sure. Inside, the phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. My chest tightened as I read it. You don't know me, but I think my father knew yours. I have something that belongs to both of you. No name, just coordinates and a time. I smiled faintly, closing the phone. For the first time, the unknown didn't scare me. It called to me. Because now I had nothing left to lose and everything to protect. I turned off the lights, the house settling around me like an old friend finally at peace. Tomorrow, I'd start over. Not as the woman who was slapped and silenced, not as the one who cooked revenge for breakfast, but as the heir to her father's truth. And this time, no one would dare bruise me again. Would you have stayed silent when they broke you, or would you have fought back like Ariba did? Tell me in the comments, because every scar has a story, and I want to hear yours. Don't forget to subscribe for the next story. Because not every secret stays buried forever.